My name is Courtney. I'm 34, and I really thought that family dinner would be the night they finally saw me differently. I'd spent the whole day cooking in that old house out in Waxhaw, North Carolina. The same house I'd saved from foreclosure years ago. Everyone was there. Dad, Mom, my brother, his wife, their little girl. I put the food on the table, smiling like an idiot, hoping for once they'd act proud. Then Dad leaned back, looked around the room with that smirk I know too well, and said loud enough for every single person to hear, "Still living in that shabby old house, huh?" The whole table burst out laughing. My brother snorted so hard he almost choked. His wife covered her mouth, eyes sparkling like it was the joke of the year. Even Mom let out that sharp little laugh that cuts deeper than yelling. I felt my face burn. The roast went cold. Nobody touched it. I didn't say a word. I just pushed my chair back, grabbed my keys, and walked out while they were still laughing. 2 weeks later, my brother was blowing up my phone, literally begging, voice cracking. "Courtney, please sell the house back to us." Before I tell you exactly how I made that happen, quick question: what time is it where you're watching, and what city are you in? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and don't look away, because you won't believe what came next. 4 years ago, I did something huge for my family, something I thought would finally make them see me as an equal. Instead, it just gave them another reason to treat me like the family doormat. See, growing up in that same house in Waxhaw, North Carolina, I was never the favorite. That spot always belonged to my older brother, Travis. He was the athlete, the loud one, the kid who brought home trophies and made Dad beam with pride at every single dinner. Me, I was the quiet kid with the camera, the one who spent weekends taking pictures of flowers and stray cats, while Travis was out winning championships. Dad would brag about Travis's touchdowns for hours, but when I won first place in a statewide photography contest at 16, he just nodded and said, "That's nice, Courtney." "Did you see your brother's game last night?" Mom wasn't much better. She'd buy Travis new cleats the second he outgrew a pair. But when I needed a better lens for school, she told me to wait until Christmas. Christmas never came. Report cards Travis brought home mostly B's and got praised like he cured cancer. I came home with straight A's in National Honor Society and got asked why I didn't try out for cheer like a normal girl. Even holidays were lopsided. Travis got the bigger slice of pie, the better stocking stuffers, the louder "we're so proud of you" speeches. When we got older, it never stopped. Travis dropped out of college after one semester, partied too much, whatever, but Dad still called it finding himself. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through college, graduated debt-free, and started building a real career. But to them, I was still the artsy one who'll never have a stable job. They never asked what I actually did for work anymore. They just assumed I was scraping by. Then came the housing crash after Dad retired early from the factory. Suddenly, the mortgage on the Waxhaw house was underwater and the bank was circling. Dad's pride wouldn't let him admit they were about to lose the family home, the same house we grew up in, the one with the crooked basketball hoop still hanging over the garage. One night he called me, voice shaking, and asked if I could help out because Travis has his own bills now. Translation: they needed me to bail them out again. I had saved every penny for years. Instead of buying myself a place, I offered to buy the house from them for way below market, $80,000 cash, so they could pay off the bank and avoid foreclosure. I took over the deed, the taxes, everything. In return, they got to keep living there rent-free. I only asked them to cover the basic upkeep and property taxes, which were low. I thought finally they'd see what I was capable of. That I wasn't the screw-up little sister anymore. Wrong. The first month they acted grateful. Then it went right back to normal. Travis and Whitney moved in with baby Riley to save money, and suddenly the whole family was living in my house, my name on the deed, my credit on the line, if anything went wrong, and not a single thank you. If I ever visited, Dad would joke that the place still looked exactly the same. Guess some things never get upgraded, while Travis laughed and slapped me on the back like I was still 15. Whitney would post pictures of the backyard barbecues, calling it our little piece of paradise, without ever tagging me or mentioning whose name was actually on the mortgage. I swallowed it every single time. Because they were family. Because Riley would run to me with her little arms open screaming Aunt Courtney, and that made it feel worth it. Because I was tired of being the problem child who never helped. Until that dinner when Dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "Still living in that shabby old house, huh?" And the whole table cracked up like it was the funniest thing they'd heard all year. That was the moment I realized some people will never see you, no matter what you give them. A few months after that dinner, Christmas rolled around, and I decided to try one more time. I spent weeks picking out gifts I thought would finally make them notice how hard I worked. For Dad Gregory Harrison, I found a vintage mechanical watch he'd been eyeing online for years. Mom Pamela Harrison got a pair of noise-canceling headphones because she was always complaining about Dad's snoring. My brother Travis Harrison received a top-of-the-line GoPro since he loved posting fishing videos. His wife Whitney Harrison got 2 first-class plane tickets to the Florida Keys. She was always saying she needed a real vacation. For their daughter Riley, I bought the exact dollhouse she'd circled in every catalog, the one with the tiny working lights. I wrapped everything perfectly, drove out to Waxhaw on Christmas Eve, and carried the boxes inside myself. The living room smelled like cinnamon and pine, the tree lights twinkling like nothing had ever gone wrong. I handed the gifts out one by one, watching their faces, waiting for something that looked like gratitude. Dad opened the watch, turned it over once, and set it on the coffee table without even putting it on. Mom tried the headphones for maybe 10 seconds before taking them off and folding them back into the box. Travis glanced at the GoPro, muttered cool, and tossed it onto the couch. Whitney looked at the plane tickets, smiled thinly, and said she'd have to check her schedule. Riley was the only one who lost her mind over the dollhouse, hugging my legs so tight I almost fell over. By New Year's, I found out what really happened to those gifts. I stopped by unannounced to drop off some groceries for Riley and spotted Dad's watch still sitting in its open box on a shelf in the garage, covered in dust. Mom's headphones were being used as a doorstop in the hallway. Travis had already sold the GoPro on Facebook Marketplace for half what I paid. Whitney never even booked the tickets. They expired, worthless. That stung, but it wasn't the worst part. A week later, I got a message from Shelby Carter, a girl Whitney used to work with at the makeup counter. We weren't close, but we'd stayed loosely in touch. Her text came with a screenshot and a short apology. "I wasn't trying to start anything, but I thought you should see this." It was a group chat Whitney had with 3 of her friends. The message was timestamped 2 days after Christmas. Whitney had posted a selfie in the master bedroom, my old bedroom growing up with the big bay window I paid to replace 2 years ago. Caption read, "Living rent-free in Courtney's house, and she still thinks she's doing us a favor." The market value on this place just hit $680,000 on Zillow, and she has no clue. We basically own a mansion and pay nothing. She's too soft to ever say a word. We're set for life. The responses underneath were fire emojis and laughing faces. One friend wrote, "Girl, you played her good." Another said, "Some people are just born to be used." I sat in my car in the driveway and read it 4 times before the words stopped blurring. My own sister-in-law bragging about scamming me to her friends like it was the smartest thing she'd ever done. Calling me soft, calling me clueless. I opened Zillow right there on my phone, typed in the address I knew by heart. The listing estimate loaded $680,000 exactly, more than double what the house was worth when I bought it from my parents. Every repair, every new roof shingle, every upgraded appliance I'd paid for out of pocket had turned into their jackpot, and they were laughing about it behind my back. Something inside me went very quiet. I forwarded the screenshot to myself, saved it in a locked folder, and drove home without going inside. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty or small or desperate for their approval. I felt clear. Cold, but clear. They weren't just ungrateful. They were proud of taking advantage of me. They thought I was too weak to ever do anything about it. They had no idea how wrong they were. The next weekend, I sent a simple group text family meeting at the Waxhaw house Sunday afternoon. No kids. Riley was staying with a friend. They showed up late. Dad grumbling about traffic. Mom carrying a casserole like it was a normal Sunday. Travis and Whitney walked in like they owned the place, dropping their coats on the same couch I'd paid to reupholster last year. I waited until everyone was seated in the living room before I spoke. "I'm selling the house," I said, keeping my voice flat. "I already have a real estate agent. It'll be listed in 45 days. You all need to be out by then." Silence for maybe 3 seconds, then chaos. Travis jumped up first. "You're what? This is our home." Courtney Whitney's mouth actually fell open. "You can't be serious. Where are we supposed to go?" Dad's face turned purple. He stood up so fast his chair rocked. "This is how you repay everything we've done for you. You're ungrateful, just like I always said you'd turn out." Mom stared at her hands in her lap and said nothing, same as always when things got ugly. I didn't raise my voice. "The deed's in my name. It has been for years. I'm done paying taxes and insurance so you can live here for free while calling me names behind my back." 45 days. Travis laughed, but it came out shaky. "You're bluffing. You'd never kick your own family out." "Watch me." Whitney tried the guilt route next. "Think about Riley. This is the only home she's ever known." "Riley will be fine," I answered. "You'll find something in your budget." Dad pointed a finger at me. "After everything we sacrificed raising you," I cut him off. "You mean the house you almost lost because you stopped making payments, the one I bought so the bank wouldn't take it. That sacrifice." He opened his mouth, closed it, then stormed out to the porch. Mom followed without a word. Travis and Whitney stayed another 20 minutes trying every angle, yelling, bargaining, fake tears. When none of it worked, they left, too, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. That night, Travis posted on Facebook. I woke up to hundreds of notifications. It was a long public rant, complete with old family photos in front of the house. "My own sister is selling the family home out from under us because she wants cash. Some people choose money over blood. Pray for us during this difficult time." Comments poured in fast. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years called me heartless. Old high school friends messaged asking if it was true that I was evicting my parents. Whitney shared the post to all her makeup groups with crying emojis. I didn't respond publicly. I just saved every screenshot. 2 nights later, my phone buzzed at 2 in the morning with a text from a blocked number. "Sell the house and watch your back." Then, another 5 minutes later, accidents happen. I stared at the screen until it went dark, heart racing, but I wasn't scared the way they wanted me to be. I was furious. These were the people who taught me family was everything, and now they were sending anonymous messages because I finally stood up for myself. I forwarded both texts to Blake Anderson, my boyfriend, and the real estate attorney who'd handled the original purchase years ago. He called me right away, even though it was the middle of the night. "Save everything," he said. "We'll use it if we need to file for a protective order or speed up eviction." I took a deep breath. I was hoping it wouldn't come to that. "It already has," he replied. "They just declared war. We're not losing." The next morning, I drove back to the house while they were all at work and changed the code on the garage keypad. I installed 2 small security cameras myself, one facing the driveway, one covering the back door. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd have proof. By the end of that week, the Facebook post had over 400 likes and dozens of shares. People were tagging local news pages asking if greedy daughter evicts parents was a real story. Whitney kept adding fuel, replying to strangers that I'd always been jealous of her family. I still didn't take the bait online. Instead, I met with the agent Blake recommended and signed the listing agreement. Market value was holding strong at $680,000. We scheduled professional photos and an open house for exactly 45 days out. When I locked up the house that afternoon, I noticed fresh scratches along the driver's side door of my car parked in the driveway. Long, deliberate lines, key marks. They weren't there when I arrived. I took pictures from every angle, added them to the growing folder on my phone, and drove away without looking back. They thought intimidation would make me fold. They were about to learn just how wrong that bet was. The scratches on my car were only the beginning. 3 days later, I got a call from the security company. Motion detected inside the house at 4 in the morning. I pulled up the live feed on my phone and watched Travis walk through the master bathroom with a hammer. He swung it once hard right into the old cast-iron tub we'd all argued about replacing for years. The crack echoed through the microphone like a gunshot. Porcelain shards flew everywhere. He hit it again then, a third time, until the entire side caved in. Whitney followed him in carrying a box cutter. She went straight to the living room curtains I'd had custom made 2 summers ago, and sliced them from top to bottom, long, deliberate tears that couldn't be repaired. Travis moved to the garage next. I heard the spray paint before I saw it. When the camera adjusted, bright red letters covered the back wall. Greedy bitch in dripping capital letters 3 feet tall. They left the lights on and the front door wide open when they walked out. I sat in my apartment staring at the frozen image for a long time. The damage was thousands of dollars easy. But it wasn't about money anymore. It was about making sure I regretted my decision. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I ordered 4 more hidden cameras, professional grade this time, and drove out at dawn to install them myself, 1 in the hallway, 1 in the kitchen, 2 more covering the garage and backyard. I hardwired them to the cloud so nothing could be deleted locally. By noon, I had continuous footage of everything that had happened and everything that would happen next. Blake met me at the house that same afternoon. He walked through room by room, taking notes on his phone while the broken tub leaked slowly onto the tile. When he saw the garage wall, he just shook his head. "This is criminal damage," he said quietly. "We're not waiting 45 days anymore." He made a call to Marcus Reed, the senior partner at his firm who handled evictions and real estate disputes. An hour later, we were in Marcus's office downtown signing paperwork. The formal notice to vacate was printed on official letterhead, 10 days to leave instead of 45, citing intentional destruction of property and safety concerns. North Carolina law was clear. Once deliberate damage was documented, the timeline could be shortened dramatically. Marcus slid the final page across the desk. "Serve this through the sheriff's office tomorrow morning. They won't be able to ignore it when a deputy hands it over in person." I signed without hesitation. That evening, Blake and I sat on my couch reviewing the new footage frame by frame. Travis came back twice more that week, once to pour paint thinner on the hardwood hallway. The cameras caught the strong smell even through the audio. Another time, Whitney emptied an entire bag of flour across the kitchen and smeared it into the grout with her shoes. Dad showed up one afternoon and kicked in the bottom panel of the back door to teach me a lesson about locking family out. Every incident was time-stamped, saved in multiple locations, and emailed automatically to Marcus's office. By the 8th day, the house looked like a war zone. The real estate agent called and asked if we still wanted to list it. I told her to hold off 1 more week. I needed the sheriff's visit on record first. Blake stayed with me every night after that. He could see how exhausting it was becoming, but he never once suggested I back down. Instead, he cooked dinner, rubbed my shoulders, and reminded me that the cameras were running 24/7. On the 9th morning, the sheriff served the papers. I watched the body cam footage Marcus sent over Travis answering the door and his boxer's face going white when the deputy explained they had 24 hours to remove their belongings, or everything would be set on the curb. Whitney screamed something incoherent. Dad tried to argue with the deputy about family rights. The officer just handed over the packet and left. That night, the cameras recorded them packing in near silence, boxing up only what was theirs, leaving my furniture and appliances behind. They took every light bulb, every roll of toilet paper, every curtain rod, but they didn't touch anything else after the sheriff's warning about additional charges. When the last car pulled away just before midnight, the house was finally quiet. I drove out alone the next morning. The damage was even worse in daylight, but the cameras had done their job perfectly. Every dollar of destruction was documented, every face clearly visible. I stood in the wrecked bathroom and felt something lift off my shoulders I hadn't realized was there. They had tried to break the house to break me. Instead, they had just handed me the fastest legal eviction in the county. The morning after they left, Travis called me for the first time in weeks. I was drinking coffee when his name flashed on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. "Courtney," he started, voice hoarse, like he hadn't slept. "We need to talk about the house." I stayed quiet and waited. He took a shaky breath. "Look, we all said things we didn't mean. The damage, the posts, all of it. We were just scared. Can we start over? I'll pay you what you paid back then, 80,000 cash. Just sell it back to us. Please." I set my mug down. "It's too late." "What do you mean, too late?" Panic crept into his tone. "You haven't listed it yet, have you?" "I signed a contract yesterday," I said. $680,000 to Ethan and Sarah Mitchell, a young couple relocating from Raleigh. Their pre-approved closing in 30 days. The house is theirs. Silence stretched so long I thought the call dropped. Then Travis started crying, actual sobbing, into the phone. "You can't do this. That's our home. Riley's home. Where are we supposed to live?" "You had 10 days to leave peacefully," I reminded him. "You chose to destroy everything instead." "The new buyers already know about the damage. They're getting a discount for repairs, and I'm covering the rest out of pocket so the sale goes through clean." He kept pleading, voice cracking, offering 90,000, then 100, promising to get a second mortgage, anything. Whitney grabbed the phone at one point and tried sweet-talking, saying they'd pay me back every penny plus interest if I just canceled the contract. I heard Mom in the background asking what was happening, Dad yelling that I was heartless. I listened until they ran out of words. "I'm sorry you're in this position," I finally said. "But the decision was made the moment you picked up that hammer. The house belongs to someone else now." I hung up while Travis was still begging. Later that afternoon, I drove to the property one last time before the new owners took possession. The moving trucks were already gone. The rooms echoed. The broken tub had been hauled away, the garage wall painted over in a hurry with mismatched primer that made the red letters bleed through like ghosts. A for sale sign with the Mitchells' names sat crooked in the front yard. 2 weeks later, I got a text from a cousin I barely spoke to. Dad, Mom, Travis, Whitney, and Riley had moved into Grandpa and Grandma Harrison's old ranch house in Concord, 20 minutes north. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, 5 adults, and a 6-year-old sharing space meant for 2 retirees. The cousin said the fight started the first night over who got which drawer in the bathroom. Whitney had to pick up night shifts at a 24-hour pharmacy because their savings were gone. Travis lost his manager job at the dealership. Too many days calling in sick from stress. Dad sold his truck to cover the first month's groceries and utilities. Mom spent most days on the back porch smoking again, something she'd quit 15 years ago. Riley started first grade at the local public school instead of the private one they'd bragged about for years. No more big backyard, no more neighborhood pool, no more playroom full of toys. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel guilt either. I just felt finished. Blake and I celebrated the closing with takeout on my apartment floor. The check cleared, 680,000 minus repairs and fees still left me with more money than I'd ever had at once. We paid off my student loans that same week, put a chunk into savings, and started looking at rings, not because we needed permission anymore, but because we were finally free to plan a future that was ours alone. The last box from the Waxhaw house arrived at my door a few days later, forwarded by the new owners. Inside was a single crayon drawing on crumpled notebook paper, a stick figure family holding hands under a yellow sun, and in careful 6-year-old letters at the bottom, "I miss you, Aunt Courtney." I taped it to my fridge and left it there. Some doors have to stay closed even when little hands are still knocking. A year flew by faster than I expected. Blake and I got married on a quiet Saturday in October, just 30 people at a little vineyard outside Charlotte. I wore a simple lace dress. He wore the same smile he'd had the day we closed on the Waxhaw house for the Mitchells. No drama, no speeches about family obligation, just vows we wrote ourselves, and Riley's crayon drawing tucked into my bouquet, because it felt right to carry the only pure thing that ever came out of that mess. We bought a modest 3-bedroom in Indian Trail with part of the sale money close enough to the city for work, but far enough to feel like a fresh start. The rest went into investments and a college fund we started for any kids we might have one day. Life settled into a rhythm that finally felt like mine. I never heard from Dad or Mom again. Not a text, not a birthday card. Nothing. Travis and Whitney blocked me on everything the week after the wedding invitation went out. I hadn't even expected them to come, but the block still stung for about 5 minutes. The consequences kept rolling in for them, though, and I only knew because North Carolina is small and people talk. Travis got let go from the dealership 6 months after the move. Too many no-call no-shows, too many arguments with customers. He bounced between part-time jobs for a while, then ended up driving for a delivery app 12 hours a day, just to cover the rent on a 2-bedroom apartment they eventually found in East Charlotte. Whitney went from night shifts at the pharmacy to pulling doubles at 2 different stores, because their credit was ruined and no bank would touch them for a mortgage. Dad sold the last decent thing he owned, a fishing boat he'd had since I was a kid, to help with bills. Mom took a part-time job greeting at Walmart, something she swore she'd never do. Grandpa and Grandma Harrison's house in Concord got quieter after they both passed within months of each other. The place was sold to pay medical debt, and what little was left got split 5 ways instead of going to Travis like everyone once assumed it would. Riley switched to public school and lost the fancy uniforms and the after-school programs. From what I heard through a distant cousin, she stopped asking about the old backyard pool pretty quick. Kids adapt. The only thing that ever reached me directly was a letter in Riley's handwriting mailed from her new school. A single sheet of lined paper folded into a plain white envelope with my name printed in purple marker. Dear Aunt Courtney, I miss you. Mommy says we can't call anymore, but I still have the dollhouse you gave me. It's in my new room. I hope you are happy. Love, Riley. I read it at the kitchen table and cried for the first and last time over any of it. Then I put it in a memory box with our marriage certificate and closed the lid. One Sunday last spring, Blake and I drove past the old Waxhaw house just because the route took us that way. The Mitchells were out front planting flowers. Sarah spotted us, waved like she'd been expecting us someday, and invited us in for coffee. The place looked completely different. Fresh paint, new fixtures, the garage wall smooth and white again. They'd turned my childhood bedroom into a nursery with soft yellow walls and a rocking chair by the window. Sarah showed me the framed photo they'd hung in the living room, our wedding picture that I'd sent as a thank you after closing. She said it reminded them every day that good things come to people who treat others right. We stayed almost 2 hours talking about paint colors and schools and how fast kids grow. When we left, Ethan hugged me on the porch and said, "This house feels like it was waiting for us. Thank you for letting it go." I smiled the whole drive home. That night, I sat on our own porch with Blake's hand in mine and realized something simple but heavy. Real family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who show up, who respect boundaries, who celebrate your wins instead of resenting them. I spent years trying to earn love from people who only knew how to take. Letting go wasn't losing family. It was choosing peace. If you've ever had to walk away from someone who should have had your back, but never did I see you, it hurts like nothing else, but the other side is freedom you can't imagine until you're living it. Thank you truly for sticking with me until the very last word of this story. It means more than you know. If anything here hit close to home, drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, no matter how long. And if you know someone who needs to hear that, it's okay to close the door on toxic family. Share this with them. Sometimes one story is all it takes to give someone else the courage to choose themselves. See you in the next one.